Welcome back. We now return with a CNN News 18 exclusive. Central Tibetan Administration, or the CTA in Dharamshala, is commemorating Tibetan Uprising Day. The Tibetan authorities say China is doing everything to erase Tibetan culture, namely derail the succession of the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama, remembers, repeatedly stressed that he alone should decide on the process for his reincarnation, but Chinese propaganda states they have already selected a new Dalai Lama. Tibetans fear that a Chinese successor would hurt their culture. I want to go across to Akanksha Swaroop, who joins us with more details. But a key point of contention for Tibet, like I said, is the succession of the Dalai Lama, a process which is considered sacred in Tibetan Buddhism. While Dalai Lama, like I said, has already asserted his sole authority on his reincarnation, Tibetans under Dalai Lama feel that China has propagated the selection of a new Dalai Lama, which has only given rise to these fears once again. They believe a Chinese chosen successor would lack legitimacy and become a pawn to assimilate Tibetan culture into a larger Chinese narrative. So yes, today is the day where the struggle against Chinese oppression, particularly the violent conflict that resulted in tragic loss of life, is remembered by the Tibetans. It stands as a tribute to those who sacrificed themselves for the cause and is being once again seen as an opportunity to fight the Chinese oppression. China's occupation, Tibetans say, has unleashed religious persecution. It's manifested in the destruction of monasteries and also forceful assimilation that they've spoken of time and again, which they say is being done to dilute their identity. Going across to Akanksha Swaroop, who's through with us. Akanksha, no better day than this for the Tibetans and the Dalai Lama to really ponder upon the succession plans that China is already reflecting on. So tell us a little bit about what's being discussed in the camp and what is it that China plans to do as far as choosing Dalai Lama's successor is concerned.
Right. Between 10th of March, in fact, commemorates the Tibetan Uprising of 1959, or also known as the Lhasa Uprising, which is when the Dalai Lama, in fact, exited and moved over to India. Ever since, Tibetans have been, in fact, the CTA has been fighting for the rights of Tibet, and they've been consistently calling out the Sinicization of what they call of Tibet and the genocide of the Tibetan culture. As we all know, Chinese propaganda is already talking about bringing in a new successor to the 14th Dalai Lama, which, of course, the Dalai Lama feels is an infringement upon the rights of the Tibetans. They believe that this is a ploy because the new Dalai Lama, if it were to be brought in by the Chinese, would, in fact, act like a pawn to the Chinese. And they also think, in fact, the CTA statement that has come out is talking about how the Chinese are now trying to assimilate the Tibetans and the Tibetan culture as part of the Han culture in China. They are also indoctrinating over 1 million children in Chinese boarding schools where there is no emphasis on the culture and the language of the Tibetans. And at the same time, the unchecked mining projects in Tibet by China are causing much harm to the Tibetan environment, which they believe is against not just domestic but also international laws. So this kind of Sinicization of Tibet that's currently taking place unabated, where Tibetans believe in Buddhism. The Buddhism tenets are not being encouraged. What they are calling is a cultural genocide for the Tibetans. They are now trying to assimilate them into the Han culture. At the same time, the Dalai Lama, who has been in India and under the Indian protection, believes that he would want to remain in India because he also believes that India is a democracy which has stood by the Tibetans and for the rights of Tibetans and continues to provide refuge to the Dalai Lama. And the Tibetans, or the CTA, believe that it is incumbent upon the 14th Dalai Lama, who is very much in Dharamshala, to choose. It is their right to choose who will be the successor to the 14th Dalai Lama.
Several other unchecked activities which have also been spoken of on this day, which holds very dear to the CTA. Many thanks, Akanksha, for joining us with all those details. That's all we could pack for you in this edition of Nation at 5. Thanks for watching. My colleague Poonam Burde takes it from here on Plain Speak.